Okay, I know I'm late to this one, but that Kendrick vs. Drake video literally took the life out of me. Anyways, Bad Boys 4 is officially out after 4 years of waiting. This movie was a bit of a weird one for me before it came out, because I was scared that it was just going to end up being a cash grab but no heart put into it. I love the Bad Boys franchise, and I felt like Bad Boys for Life was the perfect ending to the series, but that movie made more money than the first 2 movies combined, so it was inevitable that another sequel was coming. Typically when movie franchises keep going and going, by the 3rd movie it just starts to feel like it's being forced. But surprisingly, Bad Boys isn't one of those franchises, and the 4th movie is a worthy sequel. In a Bad Boys movie, you already know what you're gonna get, so there's no point in really taking it seriously as if it's an Oscar-worthy movie. But anyway, enough talking, let's get into it, and this is a spoiler review as always. So you guys know I always like to start off with the bad, and there were a couple of things that I didn't like about this movie, despite it being something you don't really take as seriously as a regular movie. Number 1, I wasn't really a fan of Mike's new wife in the movie. The movie opens up with Will Smith's character finally settling down from the bachelor life and getting married to his therapist that helped him when he got shot in the 3rd movie. The only problem is we've never seen this girl before, and she's kind of thrown in for the plot. She really isn't given anything to do but be used as a hostage towards the end of the movie. We don't really get to see how she is as a person or who she really is. Therefore, we don't really care about her since we don't know her or get to see her character that much. I also really don't like how they made it seem like Captain Rita and Mike were possibly going to get together, as they've been hinting that since the last movie, but ultimately go nowhere with it. I personally like them better and think that she would have been a better choice, but I understand why they didn't do that because it didn't really fit for a side plot, which brings me to my next issue, which was Mike's panic attack plot. Now, I definitely appreciate the movie spreading awareness about anxiety and panic attacks and how it's a real issue that affects people's ability to do things, but it just feels really out of character for the character of Mike Lowry. I know stuff like this can happen to people at any time, but it just felt kind of forced, and even with it in the plot, it feels like it doesn't really go anywhere and just pops up at random times. Another thing that I wasn't the biggest fan of was some of the camera work. They had a lot of scenes where it showed the first person view of Mike or Marcus while they were shooting, and it kind of threw me off because it reminded me of Call of Duty or any other first person shooter game. The vlog-looking shots also threw me off too when they would flip the camera and show their faces while this was all happening. Another thing that really bothered me more than it should have was the recasting of Marcus's wife in the movie. The original actress Teresa Randall was there for the first 2 and even the 3rd comeback movie, but she is nowhere to be found here. Even though she wasn't the most important character in the franchise, recasting characters always sucks. And I don't know if it was just the way that they wrote her or if it was just the actress, but the recasting just didn't capture the feel of the original character, and that's no disrespect to the new actress. Even though all these issues are a bit crucial to the movie, they didn't ruin it for me, which brings me into the good. I actually really like this plot. Bad Boys always has a generic plot of a super big drug lord that needs to be stopped, but they actually switched it up this time and flipped it to where now the good guys are being chased instead of them just chasing the bad guy. I really like how they incorporated the captain's death from 3rd movie and made it a part of the main plot. It gave the movie a different angle to go instead of the same typical plot, and they executed it greatly. This movie probably has the best action scenes in the franchise. Even with the weird first person shooter and vlog looking shots, the action scenes were top tier. The helicopter fight scene was probably the best action scene out of any movie in the franchise. They literally fight the villains of the movie in the air. It doesn't get better than that. That shot with Mike throwing Marcus the gun in the final battle is probably still my favorite shot of the whole film. All the fight scenes were very well choreographed as well. The prison fight scene with Armando was amazing, and I'm glad we got to see more of him in this movie. I obviously cannot forget about the greatest character in this entire franchise, the GOAT, Reggie. Reggie was first introduced in Bad Boys 2 in the most iconic and well-known scene in the entire franchise, and they brought him back in the 3rd movie showing that he ended up becoming a Marine and ended up marrying Marcus's daughter. He had very limited screen time in the 3rd movie, but in this movie he literally has an action scene where he takes out 15 people by himself, and it's literally the best scene in the entire movie. Even though he has a limited role in this movie as well, it feels like his character had a whole character arc as he went from a kid being harassed by Mike and Marcus to a Marine who takes out multiple people by himself and gets respect from them at the end of the movie. I've been seeing jokes about how they could make a Bad Boy spinoff of Reggie and Armando since they both have great action scenes, but their action scenes are so good in this movie that that's something that I'll actually be interested in. Martin Lawrence's Marcus is the other highlight of the film character-wise. Will Smith is good as always, but Martin Lawrence's energy in this movie was a lot higher than the last one. It felt like he got to let loose a lot more and that he had more to do. He easily had the funniest lines and carried the movie. Of course, Will Smith and Martin Lawrence's chemistry is still as strong as it was in the first Bad Boys. I feel like their chemistry has been really authentic in the past 2 movies because they're older now and they feel like actual friends that have been with each other for decades. The celebrity cameos were also really funny here too. The Kobby Lame and DJ Khaled cameos actually got a good laugh out of me and they didn't feel forced. Alexander Ludwig's character Dorn is probably my favorite new character from the newer sequels, as he brings a lot of comic relief to an already funny movie. The villain James McGrath, played by Eric Dane, wasn't the best villain in the series or anything like that, but he was really good in the way that he was always a step ahead of the main characters, and he was a real threat to them because of the team behind him. Overall, this movie was definitely the movie of the summer and was my favorite movie of the year so far. I literally want to go back and watch it in the theater again for the Reggie scene alone. You can tell that the people behind this movie actually care about the significance of this franchise and aren't just making these movies for a cash grab. However, I do hope that this is the last one that they make, because there is such thing as running a franchise to the ground even when all the movies are good, so you have to let the story end at some point. This franchise is really dumb fun, but it's still great how they can make sequels years later and they're still great and fun to watch. Typically when they take a beloved franchise and do sequels years after the last one came out, it sucks. But Will Smith and Martin Lawrence's chemistry is still so good after almost 30 years since the first movie came out, and when you pair it with the great action scenes and comedic timing, you really can't be mad at it unless you're a snarky film critic that tries to find a problem with everything. It's insane that the two later sequels are low-key better than the original two, but I will speak on that in a video ranking all the Bad Boys movies to give a further explanation of that take. But this movie was fire, therefore I give it a 9 out of 10. Flawed, but still great dumb fun.